Using guidelines in SCAL5 or 6 for designing a box file. I made this video for Kim, a Facebook friend who had watched a video on making a small triangle box, but using manual measurements and scoring on cardstock, followed by cutting with scissors. Now, Kim, being a longtime user of digital die cutters like myself, was far more interested in how to take this manual technique and convert it into a cutting file. And I was happy to help because it gave me a great opportunity to show all of you how guidelines can be used in SCAL to create a very accurate fold-up box. If you want to see the original video, it's linked in the description below. And from this video, I wrote down the measurements and then converted them to decimals for entering as guidelines. Note that while these first two sets were score lines, this third set was used in that video just to do pen marks to indicate where to cut. You'll see, however, how I use them also as guidelines to know where to click as I added the cut line around the outside of the box. Okay, so the first thing that I did was to create a rectangle that sized exactly the way it was in the video, just like the piece of paper that was being started with, which was 7.5 inches wide and 6.75 inches tall. Okay, then I'm going to move this up to the very corner of the project area. Even if you're cutting with a different cutter where you want the project to be, say, down in this corner or whatever, go ahead and put in the top left because that's how SCAL has the locations are based on this being the 0, 0 corner. So I'm going to change this to 0 and this to 0 so that I know it's aligned in that corner. Then I'm going to lock this layer so it can't move. Now then, the way into my opinion, the best way to do this when you're trying to reproduce is to put in the guidelines exactly the way the person who designed the file shows in the YouTube video where they're scoring by hand. You're going to put in those same lines and all the markings and everything, but you're going to use the guidelines feature. So to do that, you're going to come down here on the document panel and turn on Show Guidelines, click on Edit, and then you're going to start entering them. Now, I always, for some reason, get my horizontal and vertical confused. It's really, well, it's not like I know what a horizontal line is. They're going to ones go this way and vertical. The problem is I can never remember whether to put in X or Y. I don't know, it's like a brain thing. But let's just start with, I'm going to start with the ones that she had put in for the 6 3/4 side, which would be this one here. And so I believe that those are going to be the horizontal ones. And so then X would be 0 as I recall. And again, if I'm wrong, so what? And now I'm going to leave this set to black right now, but later I'm going to change the colors of each of the different types so I can better tell them apart. So I'm going to put in the 2 inches, and then I'm going to put in the 4 3/4, 4.75 inches, and put both of those in. Okay. Oops, and I did something wrong. Let's come back to the edit window. About the 2 inches. And oh, by the way, I'm going to take this 2 inches and I'm also going to lock these as I go so I don't have to worry about any of them moving. And then this one here then is the 4.75 inches, and click on Add for it, and it's locked. Okay. Then coming the other direction, then for these, I'm going to switch over here to vertical. And there were like 2 sets. They're the ones that are the where the fold line goes and ones where the points go. It's kind of interesting how there's kind of 2 sets there, but that's fine. I'm just going to use different colors for them. So I'm going to switch to red for this. And then again, then I'm switching to vertical. So this is going to be 0. And then I'm going to put in 2 1/4, 2.5. Click on Add. And then the next one is 4.5. Click on Add. And then the third one was 6.75, and click on Add. Now then, in addition to that, there were these other marks. And so for those, I'm going to switch those to the color, let's say blue. And then the first one was 1 1/8, 1.125, Add. And then the next one was 3.375, Add. And the final one is 5 5/8, which is 5.625, and click on Add. Okay, so now that I have all of the various lines that make up this particular file, and of course, this is where you're probably good to have to sketch it out as you watch a YouTube video to know exactly where then you want to put in your lines. So to add the lines, I'm going to click on this draw tool, click on it once, And I kind of know that, you know, these I know it did these little points here, right? I can visualize exactly what it looked like. So I'm going to click over here, and I'm not going to fret too much about exact placement because I'm going to go back and correct it. Just kind of, you know, tweak those little locations. But I know it starts right here, and I'm going to left click, and then I'm just going to come up, you know, to kind of the top and down here, and then up here, and then just work my way around. And then when I get to this point here, I know it extends out to the end of the paper, back down here, across, and then just back and forth like this. And then when I get to this last point, then I come right up here till I get right on top, and I click. And when I do that, then, you know, you can see that it completes. And then in terms of it being filled, you'll notice over here on the fill and stroke panel that I have the fill set to none. But if I come up here and give it a color, then it goes ahead and it fills in with a color, so I know it's a closed shape. Now then, let's make sure these are, you know, like right in exactly where you want them. So I'm going to click on the magnify tool, and I'm going to zoom in so that I get both of these points, both the upper point and the bottom point, so I can just work my way around and make sure they're all, you know, kind of just, again, it's kind of tweaked. And so to get the positioning right on that, I'm going to decrease, I'm going to select this path, I'm going to decrease the fill and stroke, which is really pretty big. I'd had it set at 2.5 to make that outer rectangle, but it doesn't need to be that large. So let's bring it down to like a half like that. And then I come to the shape tool, which is the third one down. That, of course, that's the node edit. And then I can take this and then I can, you know, line it up right with where these guidelines are meeting the very top. And saying, I come down here, I go, that one looks good. And you know, you don't obsess too much because trust me, I'm being just by being this zoomed in and moving them the way I am, I'm being more exact than most file designers bother to be based on my experience of repairing files for customers who send me files and say, this doesn't cut right at all. The fold lines don't match up. And I look at it, I go, yeah, that's because the person wasn't paying attention to what they were doing and they were designing it. They were designing it, I don't know, from like, you know, a mile away from their computer or something. Anyway, that one looks good. And this one looks good. Move it over a little bit. So you're just basically tweaking these right along the guidelines. Okay, and then this one goes, it looks good there. Okay, so I think that looks good. So then the next thing to do, before I put in the other fold lines, I'm going to add the little notch. And the way I do that, I'm going to temporarily move this over to the right, so I got a little room to work with. And I'm going to come over here and get myself a circle. And I don't remember now what she did in the video. I think it was about a 1/2 inch circle, but whatever size video, size circle was used, you know, punch that out, you just, you know, make that same size. So over here on the position size panel, I will make that 1/2 inch exactly. Okay, and then I'm going to bring it over until I line it up just along the edge, and I might zoom in a little bit, make sure that looks, yeah, that looks like it's vertical. Now to make sure it's halfway between that, I know it's halfway between the entire project, so I'm going to select it all, and then I make sure I have 2 selection marked, and then I use this one to make sure it's in the middle. Okay, boom, there it goes. Then, since I just added it, I know that it's on top of the other one. So I know back, I want to keep the back, so it's back minus front, and that cuts out that notch. Then I can come back and move this back over to in position. So I'm going to move it over to 0. Technically that Y should be at perfectly at 0 too, but I was off by 7/1000th of an inch, which is not even where close to the limitations of a cutter. So okay, so then the last thing is just to add the fold lines, the remaining fold lines, which are would be these 3 right along here. And so to do that, again, I'm going to lock this layer so that, you know, I don't have to worry about disturbing it. Plus, if you try to add lines like using the draw tool and you have something else that's active, it'll try to be snapping to that. And that's not what I want. I want these fold lines to be independent, you know, because they're just their own fold lines. Oh, and also got to do the one around the outside. So let's do that one first. I'll do the one around the outside. So I'm going to take the draw tool, and then I'm going to click here, and I'm going to hold the shift key to keep the line perfectly horizontal as I come across to this intersection right here. Click, and then again I'm holding it perfectly. I'm holding the shift key to make it perfectly vertical, and then I'm going to come back over here again, perfectly vertical to the end. And then that puts in that fold line. I hit the enter key. And then that one, let's give it a different color. I'll come over here and give it, how about we make it red or something. Okay. And then I'll give it a thickness of 1. And so that'll be that one. And then with those same ones, oh, and then over here, let's go ahead and lock that one, because again, I don't want it to, it gets a little weird if you start trying, because you can't have a node like right here in the middle that would be connected to both of these lines. It's not the way nodes can only have, any given node can only have 2 paths coming away from it, right? It can't have one this way, and one this way. So these end up being independent lines. So let's turn on, and that's true of all vector programs. There's none of them where you have an intersection with 3 paths coming out of one node. So then I come up here and again, shift key, enter. And then again over here, I'm going to click, shift key, click, enter. And of course this one I don't have to do because it's part of that outer path that I already created. And then I think that's it. I can come over then to the document panel. Let's come down here and I can hide the show guidelines, and I don't need my outer path anymore, so I can hide it. And then that should be it. Let's zoom out here and move these out of the way. And the project essentially is ready to go. You assign your score lines, to draw if you're planning on using a scoring tool, and you're ready to cut the outside. Of course, I've got to unlock some of these things so that they're accessible. But otherwise, that's it. And so I hope you enjoyed the video. And as always, if there's anything you have a question about, just please contact me.